by just gaining that additional visibility and start optimizing campaigns for quality rather than quantity, we're able to reduce media spend by almost 50%.
So one thing we see a lot, Cristiano, is companies, B2B and B2C, very comfortable spending sometimes millions of pounds every month to acquire new traffic to the website. Those same companies, when we want to employ some additional tracking or analytics or measurement, people freak out. They can't find the budget for it. And the reality is, of all those millions that are being spent, often so much is being wasted because the correct measurement and tracking isn't in place to see how good that's working. Is that what you see?
Yeah, we see that a lot actually. And I think it's mental that companies will spend all that budget in acquiring new traffic, but wouldn't spend money in actually understanding the quality of that traffic, right?
Absolutely.
And perhaps that's the main challenge here, the definition, because it's very, very hard for a digital marketer to explain to a non-digital marketing person like a CFO or head of finance, which are the individuals that own the budget and will give you money to do it. It's very hard for them to explain the benefits of it. So hopefully today we're going to be able to bring some clarity, come up with a few different ways of how you can actually have those conversations internally, really educate all your stakeholders on the actual value of this and how much that can do for your business and help with your business growth.
And that's what we're really trying to do with these conversations, right? Be that gap between the guys implementing the marketing often and those that often have the budgets, just so there's that better understanding, because as an agency that has conversations with so many people, that is always the gap in between. So we're going to be using several terms here to kind of help companies understand how they can grow revenue and save money by optimizing their tracking and measurement. But let's define some of the terms first. What is analytics?
Good question. I think every time someone mentions the word analytics, the first thing that comes to mind is Google Analytics. And that is not wrong. Google Analytics is definitely one tool that can help you do analytics, okay? But there are many other tools out there that can do it as well. Mixpanel is another one, and we can name a few others, right? But in a very top level, summarized explanation, analytics is the process of collecting, sorting, and then help you visualize that data. And that's exactly what Google Analytics does, okay? That's why people always put analytics top of the list when we talk about analytics. Via tracking methods, it will collect data from your website or external sources. It will then sort that data into geographical, habits, any segmentation you want to do, and then we'll help you visualize that in terms of reports and graphs and tables.
What is the difference between first-party data and third-party data?
Good question. Is that there's a whole conversation about first-party data because we're not going to have cookies in the near future, right? And it's important for us to understand what the difference between first and third-party data. So first-party data is the data you collect from your own sources. So data you collect from your website, from your app, or data that your sales team type in manually into your Salesforce or whichever other CRM system that you use. And third-party data, as the name says, is data that you bring from third-party providers or vendors. If you want to enrich your data, for example, you might combine first-party and third-party data to get more insights about quality of certain data points, what kind of audiences you want to go after, etc., etc.
So you kind of answered it, but I'm going to ask it again. What is data enrichment?
Okay. Data enrichment, in the example I just used, it was used to combine third-party and first-party data and get additional insights so you can make better decisions. You can do data enrichment with pure first-party data as well by just adding additional data points to a larger data set, okay? So if you're combining multiple sets of data to gain more visibility into something, to get information that you didn't have before, that's data enrichment. And this is super powerful. This is a game changer in any digital marketing campaign. If you start doing data enrichment, and if you do it the right way, you then start optimizing campaigns for quality. And this is when when you're really able to scale, get more revenue, and spend less money in marketing, which is quite important.
And that's it. Like once you start to go into this new world that we're about to speak to here, it's about having a different conversation in the business, right? Because you're going to start to measure different things. If you're a senior marketer watching this now, how would you explain to them the value of data enrichment and how it's going to change their business, and what kind of conversations they will have to have within the business to really get the power of what it can do?
Okay, excellent question. I think it's important start by saying that when you start doing data enrichment, and if you want to utilize that data to improve performance of your campaigns, the first thing you need to have in mind is you need to change your mindset about what you're trying to achieve. What is your real objective there? I want to grow my business. I want to get more sales qualified leads. I want to grow revenue from transactions on my e-commerce. You can only do that if you start connecting all these different data points and start optimizing your campaigns for quality rather than quantity. But for you to get to that level, you need to make changes in your analytics and your tracking, because you need to be able to start collecting certain information, certain pieces of information that you didn't have before, right? And there are many ways to do this. For B2B and B2C, it could be different. It really depends on the systems that you utilize, but the point remains. You can decrease your media spend. We have examples where we're actually able to decrease media spend for a few of our clients by up to 50%. You increase the revenue generated by your digital marketing campaigns by up to 20, 30%. So it's a win-win situation, really. And whenever you're selling something internally, whenever you're trying to get budget approved for certain initiatives, most people know this, but anyway, you're either trying to save money or you're trying to make more money. And that's how you should communicate this to any of our other stakeholders. You need to buy into this idea first. Once they see the value of it, you're able to attribute an ROI behind it, which is very, very difficult for any analytics projects, right? But once you're able to do that, quantify things, then it's easier for you to get that budget.
I think in summary, it's helping companies go through the mindset shift from quantity to quality, which can be different, right? If you're a B2B company used to getting 1,000 leads every month, and we're going to now enrich that data so we can see, okay, we're getting all these leads, but only 10% of them ever become business. So we're either going to cut out that other 80%, and we're going to double down on those kind of keywords or campaigns that are working. That is often a big mindset shift in the organization, right? To go away from these vanity metrics.
It's very challenging, and it's challenging for many reasons. One example, a digital marketing specialist that is actually managing your campaigns and is getting those 1,000 conversions per month that you just mentioned. You do data enrichment, you find out that, to your own example, only 10% of those are actually good quality. He's going to be hurt.
Yeah.
They usually get defensive, but it's not about that, right? When we do that as an agency, we need to educate our clients and everybody in that company. We actually prepare them for what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to pull data to understand which of those conversions actually turn into marketing qualified leads and sales and opportunities after that. We'll probably find out that some campaigns and keywords or ad groups or ads that we thought were performing really well because they have a high volume of conversions, we might actually find out that don't actually turn into business, into opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point here. That's exactly what we're trying to achieve. Understand what works and what doesn't. So you stop doing or reduce the intensity of what doesn't work and reallocate that budget into something that you know is working.
Yes.
Okay. So changing that mindset is quite important, and you're gonna encounter some resistance. That's for sure.
So can you give an example of some B2B data enrichment that could happen, and then how that enrichment is used to optimize a campaign or a channel?
Of course. We have many examples. And once again here, it really depends on the client, on the industry. There's no one rule fits all, right?
Mhm.
So you need to understand the different data points and data sets available, and then map out and understand, okay, how can we put all of these bits and pieces of information together so we can gain more visibility, integrate that with our campaigns, our channels, and then optimize for quality. I will give one example of what we did for Google Ads specifically. This is a client that works in the email verification industry. So if you're a large company, you want to avoid spam traps, you want to do hygiene on your email list, on a customer base, so you need to use these services, okay? So this was a very successful campaign already. We took over, we were able to produce a very high number of leads, reduce cost per click, cost per leads, and etc. All going well. And then we're like, okay, what's next here? Okay, next is we want to start optimizing for quality, okay? So we're able to bring data from their CRM system back into Google Ads. And we were trying to understand from all those conversions that we generated, which ones were actually generating the highest spend in terms of revenue, the highest gains in terms of revenue, okay? The main conversion point for these guys was subscriptions. So they would offer a free test of 20, 30 emails. You would register with them. And once you verify those 20, 30 emails, if you like what you see, you would potentially then verify a much larger list of emails. And this is when the company would make money, okay? So once we started pulling back revenue information into Google Ads campaigns, we're able to identify something very interesting. Keywords that we thought were performing really, really well in terms of volume of registrations, volume of signups, they were not generating a lot of revenue. And after further investigation, they were probably individuals, not companies, trying to validate a few email addresses here and there. Was not really what the company was targeting, the kind of profile and personas that the company was targeting. And some other keywords and campaigns that we thought were not doing great because you get much lower number of conversions at a much higher cost as well, almost twice the cost per conversion when you compare it against the other set of keywords. They were actually money makers. The lifetime value of revenue that an individual would generate that came from those keywords was way higher than from some of the other keywords in the campaign, right? After 6 months, by just gaining that additional visibility and start optimizing campaigns for quality rather than quantity, we're able to reduce media spend by almost 50%. And the revenue generated by Google Ad campaigns was 3 times higher than before because we had that data. We were then able to optimize campaigns for the right keywords. Now, very important to mention here, remember the change in mindset that I mentioned earlier?
Yep.
If you simply look at Google Ads, you would see conversions going down and the cost per conversion going up. You would immediately think, oh gosh, this is really not going the right direction here. These campaigns are not doing great. But when you analyze the data in terms of revenue, what those campaigns were generating in terms of revenue and helping the business grow, it was definitely going the right direction. That's the changing mindset that we need to have, which is quite important.
And the conversation needs to be had before those changes are made, right? To stop that freaking out, essentially.
Absolutely. Education is very important. In this particular case, we told the client, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. And that's the whole point. We're going to stop spending money on things that do not generate revenue. And we're going to reallocate that budget, that media spend into campaigns and keywords that actually generate money for you. We're going to try and maximize opportunity there.
Yeah. You said a really interesting thing earlier on that the campaigns that we thought were working well, they actually were, given what we were measuring at the point, right? So it's not that they weren't working well, it's just that was at the point that we'd stopped. It was this data enrichment project that said, okay, let's now start to measure to something else. And then when you start to do that, the other metrics can often fall away.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll go back to this a lot. You really need to change your mindset and focus on the end goal instead of conversions on the website.
Yeah.
Okay. Between you and I, getting a conversion is relatively easy.
Yeah.
That's the easy bit of everything that we do here. But getting a conversion that actually means something to your business, that is going to help you grow, that's a completely different story. That's exactly what we're trying to do when we do data enrichment.
Yes. So let's now look at B2C. Can you give an example, Cristiano, of a data enrichment project to some of the points that you may be pulling in on a B2C campaign, and then how that was used to then optimize moving forward?
Of course. So the fundamentals are the same. We're trying to add more data points, events, conversions, and use these additional data points as ask the question again. I'm getting into tacticals.
So, Cristiano, let's now take a shift and look at B2C. Can you give some practical examples of data enrichment on a B2C campaign, and then how that will be used moving forward from an optimization perspective?
Of course, I think a good example would be an e-commerce website, perhaps, right? So basic optimization is to optimize campaigns for transactions. Okay, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. Can you do better? Absolutely, you can. Okay, so what we typically do, we try and understand what happens in the funnel. Okay, as an example, what's the job of a PDP page? What is the job of a product page? To get individuals to add that product to the cart. It's the cart's job to get the conversion, to complete the transaction. Okay, and some companies don't measure the add to cart button, cart completions, transactions. So number one job there is to start collecting data from all those different data points and utilize those in your campaigns. We want to understand what kind of individuals are actually adding product to cart.
Yeah.
And if there's one subset, one segmentation of those that will be more likely to complete the transaction, let's try and get more of those.
Yeah.
You know? So we're doing one form of segmentation there. In addition to that, we can also try and understand behavior. This is when you can potentially pull third-party data and merge that with your first-party data to understand, as an example, let's suppose an individual is buying a camera. Do they need a tripod? Do they need different lenses? Do they need a case to transport that camera, right? And if yes is the answer to all these questions, when do they typically buy it? When you pull third-party data, and perhaps you already have that information in the first-party data anyway, but when you do that segmentation, you can then start creating campaigns, remarketing campaigns as an example, to retarget those individuals that bought one product and start offering other things that you know they will be interested in as well. And then the average value per customer increases significantly. You're reaching them at the right time, with the right type of products, and they will be more likely to buy. So two very quick examples of how you can do data enrichment on an e-commerce. There are many other tactics that you can apply here.
So if you're a senior marketer watching this thinking that I know we're probably not doing this at the moment, but it sounds great, I can see opportunities to increase revenue with it or to save costs, how should they go about introducing this into their organization or with their team, be that with the guys doing the work or with the board?
Okay, well, starts with a conversation, of course. All right. I think the question I would ask if I'm a digital marketing director or digital marketing manager or head of department, whatever, is what is your objective? What is our main objective with our campaigns? Okay. And they will tell you, we want to generate sales, we want to generate leads. Okay. Are we doing anything to optimize those campaigns for quality? If we're B2B, do we bring any data into our channels that will help us optimize for qualified leads instead of just leads? Because those will be more likely to help us grow our business. If you're in e-commerce, are we pulling in any data that helps us understand behaviors on our websites, or that will help us create segments and therefore retarget certain individuals? As an example, are we really optimizing campaigns for revenue instead of just transactions, instead of just leads? And if the answer is no to that question, this is when you need to start having conversations about possible things that you can do.
And we've really only touched the surface here of what to do. We're trying to just get people thinking that this is something that can actually be done. When it actually comes into the practical applications of doing this, it's a whole different conversation. But absolutely, starting with that conversation of, are we measuring as deep as possible and to the best quality as possible, is definitely the place to start.
Absolutely. That's a conversation that you must have internally. And then this is when you're going to have one of those challenges that we mentioned earlier, changing mindset. questions and answers such as, we have always done it this way, why do you want to change it now, and so on and so forth. I'm sure most of our viewers are familiar with this. Lots of companies had a cut in digital marketing budget this year, and that actually happens almost every year, to be honest. How can you ensure that you can still hit your targets with less budget and help your business grow? Data enrichment is definitely one of the solutions.
Good.
I like it.